Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 7 by Senator Fields to establish the Police Training, Screening, and De-escalation Task Force to study and make recommendations to the legislature.
Representative James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Senate Concurrent Resolution 7 creates a task force on police training, screening, de-escalation task force. Members, I bring this resolution to you today with not only with Senator Fields' name, but with 31 co-authors from the Senate. In committee, we had no red cards, 25 green cards from several organizations, including the Sheriff's Association. Actually, Mr. Renassa testified in favor of the bill, the Chief of Police Association, Baton Rouge Chamber of Commerce, and the DA's Association. Members, the task force includes various members of the legislature, several law enforcement agencies, recommendations. The governor can appoint from recommendations from LSU, Southern, Tulane, Loyola Schools of Law. We have both the president of Southern and LSU. We have the Louisiana Council of Student Body Presidents, as well as Office of State Police, several other organizations that have been working in the area. The Louisiana Legislative Youth Advisory Council is on it as well.
All right, we do have a question. Representative Mack for a question.
Representative James, my friend, we actually were able to get together today, you, Representative Miguez, Senator Fields, and myself, and with Senator Miguez's amendments coming, would you agree that this puts us in a posture where we can be unified, get this study back next year, and propose some legislation that's going to make a real difference for the citizens of Louisiana?
That's correct. We had a lengthy conversation. I do disagree with giving him the promotion to Senator Miguez.
I messed up there.
Outside of that, we did have a conversation with the author, and I think we came to some amendments that everyone's comfortable with.
And we'll be good with the language after the amendments, and we can all move forward together.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
All right, Representative James, you want to take up some of the amendments? All right.
Representative McCormick sends up a set of amendments, two amendments number 497, members, on your computers.
All right, Representative McCormick on your amendment. Representative McCormick.
How y'all doing today? My amendment adds the president of the Crime Fighters of Louisiana as a designee. Crime Fighters of Louisiana is the largest victims' rights group in the state of Louisiana with over 12,000 members. They are pro bono and stand up for victims' rights, including going to court with them, making sure the cases are heard, and that victims are not forgotten about. This group is made up of all walks of life, including lawyers, judges, and police officers, and I ask for your favorable passage.
All right, is there any objection to the adoption of the amendment? Representative James.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and no objection to crime fighters. This task force already has 23 members. Senator Fields asked that we not include any other members. I've told groups that I worked with very closely that we couldn't add them. We have former members of this body that are now working in various groups. We've told them no, so I'm going to try to honor my commitment to Senator Fields and keep this at 23. Thank you.
All right. Representative McCormick offers up an amendment which Representative James objects. All those in favor of adding the amendment vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will open the machine. Members, vote your machines. Green, no. James, no. Marcel, no. Edmund Jordan, no. Dustin Miller, no. DeWitt Carrier, yes. Do voting. All right, close them up. 52 yeas, 44 nays, and the amendment is adopted.
You sure?
Next amendment.
52 and 53. Huh? I don't know.
52 yeas, 44 nays.
So it don't pass.
Thank you.
Don't pass.
Next set of amendments is a set of amendments by Representative Miguez, number 501 on your computers.
All right, Representative Miguez on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment changes on page 1, line 4 and 5, and changes the language there, and also deletes on page 1, line 7 through 9, which references a specific study. I want to thank Representative James for working with us, as well as Senator Fields, and Representative Mack, thank you so much for your work, and thank you for the kind words earlier. Thanks so much, Mr. Speaker.
All right, Representative Miguez, Office of Amendment. Any objection to the adoption of the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment is adopted. Next amendment.
Representative Bacala offers up 2 amendments, number 505 on your computers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, most of these types of task force include a representative of the District Attorneys Association. I was called today and asked to offer that as an amendment, not from the DAs, but from a specific sheriff. Seems reasonable, but we always have them on these types of task force, so the amendment does just that.
All right, Representative James for an objection.
Same objection. The members of the DA's Association, they were in committee. Not only were they there, they submitted a green card. So I'm going to ask that we try to honor the senator on this one and not make this now a 25-person task force.
All right, we have a question on the amendment. Is it for Representative Bacala? James?
Take an answer. Representative, thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Representative James, in some of our discussions, you mentioned there was some disparity on how prosecution was done in some of these incidents. At first, I wasn't agreeable to having the District Attorneys Association on because before talking to you, I thought this issue, did you know, was specifically about law enforcement and how to properly handle those individuals while they were being arrested. In our discussions, did you know that I learned that prosecution actually is a part of this discussion, and I want to know, would you feel comfortable adding them onto the bill, knowing that there's been some inconsistencies through your own words on certain individuals being prosecuted and certain individuals not being prosecuted? And maybe it's good to have everyone at the table, did you know?
Yeah, my number one statement again is to try to keep this task force small. The DA's Association, again, they were in committee. They filled out a red card. We had a lengthy discussion on this. They didn't ask. I think that they filled out a green card, sorry. They didn't ask, and again, I want to keep this thing as tight as possible. I think that we're at 24.
But you do acknowledge that there is some disparity there?
I think that the disparity is the fact that some district attorneys choose not to prosecute. Do I think they need to be on a legislative created task force to look at the issues? No, I do not. If they had asked for it early on in the process when they put the green card, maybe so. But my concern now is with the size of the task force. And again, you were back there and you heard the conversation.
And I think we'll agree to disagree on this one, but if there is some issues there, I just think, did you know that it's a good idea to have them there so we can have those discussions with all parties and all stakeholders?
And they will be there. I've talked to the folks with District Attorneys Association, just like they were in Senate, filled out a green card. They were in the House, filled out a green card, and they've committed to be there and have these discussions. But you know, I do recognize that what your concern is. But you know, I will say again that the issue is not with them studying the issues. The issue is with some individual district attorneys deciding not to prosecute or to punt to someone else, and they decide not to prosecute. I think they're well aware of the issues. We just need some different DAs that are going to prosecute.
Thank you for answering my questions, and thank you for your work on the legislation. Appreciate it.
All right, there are no more questions on did we adopt the amendment? All right, he objected to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment will vote yea. All those vote nay on Representative Bacala's amendment. So the clerk will open the machines. Members, vote your machines. Marcel, no. Edmund Jordan, no. Dustin Miller, no. Through voting, members? Through voting? All right, close them up. 67 yeas, 32 nays, and the amendment is adopted. All right, there are no more questions on the bill. To the floor on the bill, Representative Marcel.
Thank you, members. I rise in support of this bill and want to come to the floor and personally thank all those who have worked so hard with Senator Fields to get this done. I believe that as we go through these times in our city, in our state, in our nation, we have to find ways to come together to establish a police training, screening, and de-escalation task force to address the many needs that we have in our state. So I rise in support of it. I was in the committee, and what I really like about it is the co-sponsors of this legislation. It's across party lines, it's across racial lines, and I support this legislation and ask that you would support it as well. And I certainly would like to keep the commission as low as possible with the number of members, but I thank you all for your support. And thank Senator Fields for bringing it.
Thank you, Representative Marcel. To the floor on the bill, Representative Bacala.
Members, I fully intend to support this bill. And I think we are now having conversations that we need to have about a few bad actors in a wonderful profession from which I came. And one thing that you'll notice on the original and perhaps in the amended version was that African Americans are 3 times more likely rate to be killed by police officers than are white people. But we need to make sure that we understand what that means. And I want to add some conversation to this. And look, I say this because we need to have a complete conversation. And a complete conversation means you dig just one level deeper into facts that are true, because that certainly is a true fact by my research. When you look for information, you find all sorts of things, and they vary slightly from source to source. But here's some facts, just so we have a complete conversation. Between this one source, and again, they're all similar, but they vary by a few, between 2017 and today, 1,398 Caucasians were killed by the police, which represents 41% of all those killed who we identified by race. African Americans, white was 1,398, black was 765. Now, because the white population stands at close to 200 million, and the black population's about 40 million, that's where we come up with the rate. Even though we have twice as many white people killed as black, the rate by which African Americans are killed is about 3 times higher, or in the numbers I'm looking at, about 2.57. I want to give you another number that you're not going to see very often. Of 800,000 law enforcement officers in this country, in that same period of time, 584 were killed in the line of duty, which means that the rate by which cops die in the line of duty is 40 times higher than blacks. Now, if you cut that down and say, because that's a big number, and a lot of those are not felonious action. Somewhere around 40% of those law enforcement deaths are by the felonious action of someone else. Cops get shot, they get stabbed, they get beat to death, they get run over by drunks. And when you look at that, so let's just say we're going to cut it in half. Even when you take, even when you look at that aspect of this, cops are killed feloniously 45 times higher than whites, and probably 15, 17 times more cops are killed than African Americans. Now, if we're going to have the conversation, let's make sure we have the conversation. If we're going to talk, let's talk. Let's don't limit what we're willing to speak about to things that only some people want to speak about. I really don't want to answer questions. I'll answer at my desk. I'll talk to anybody who cares to come see me there, but I don't want to go into an argument here on the floor. But let's have the whole conversation. And I'll add that I'm already working on legislation today to address these issues and how we solve the problem of how we get bad cops out of the profession. My bills are being drafted as I speak. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Representative James?
So we operated in good faith earlier, Blake, to not have the type of conversation. That's why we agreed to the amendments. But since we are here, and since I didn't want to start it, but I ain't gonna run from it. So if we wanted to fully have a conversation, we shouldn't have watered down the damn bill. We had a commitment, and at this point, Blake, I did everything I said I was gonna do. I watered down my bill, we watered down this one to prevent what I'm about to do right now. If we wanted to have a full conversation, we wouldn't have changed the wording of the bill. We all know that police officers get murdered, but you know what happens to the people that murder police officers? If they survive, they get arrested. You know what happens to police officers that kill people that look like me, Blake, Tony? They get a taxpayer-funded vacation. In Baton Rouge, Blaine Salamone got a taxpayer-funded vacation for over a year. Then when he got fired, you know what happened? The union and everybody could walk out. I don't care who walks out. Because I agreed that we weren't going to do this, didn't I, Blake? But we are here now. Tony in committee talked about the fact that as a police officer, he's had to fire some of his friends for pepper spraying somebody in handcuffs. Tony, I was pepper sprayed in handcuffs by a police officer, a white one. Doty in committee said, oh, if something happens to you and you see, and I'll intervene. And you said, if something happened to me, you said that I would intervene. And Doty, as a man, I probably want to intervene, but as a black man, I'm not intervening if a cop is doing something to you. Because while I love you, I love my daughter even more, and I got to go home to her. And I don't have a trust enough for me to intervene that I won't get shot and killed. We talk about the taser incident. Brian Fontenot, you talked about the taser incident of a guy in Atlanta. And you said that was an adequate police shooting. They had another taser incident of a white man who took a taser from a cop. The cop ran away. The same person stole a police car. Did he get shot and killed? Hell no. Had it been black, he'd have been shot and killed. That's why we are here. That's why you see several people, white, black, young, old, marching over not just streets in Louisiana, streets all across the country. I will concede that there's an issue with police brutality, period. Way too often, when the victim of that brutality is an African American, that officer skates. And the first thing you see is when that black boy was suspended from the 5th grade, or when he got kicked off his football team. You don't see all the disciplinary actions of the officer. You didn't see after Alton Sterling got killed that Blaine Salamone, the person that trained him, sent an email that said he should have never been a police officer, said he was psychotic. But you know what happened? He walked on the scene, and I don't need water, and I appreciate the amendment that says several, because the first piece of legislation only mentioned George Floyd. Blake, we could have filled 5 pages up with names. 5 pages up. And you know what happened to Blaine Salamone? After he killed Alton Sterling, after one officer was being calm, within 5 seconds, he showed up and said, B-I-T-C-H, I'll kill you. And within less than a minute, he fulfilled his promise. Yusef Ahmadi, a police officer in Baton Rouge. 3 years ago, he killed a person. Since we going there, we going there. We're going to talk about it all. He killed a young black man. 2 years ago, he shot at another one. He said, the man fired a shot at me, so I returned 2 rounds of fire. Everybody says, get body cameras. You know what happened to the body camera? Turned off. You know what happened to the front dash cam camera? Turned off. You know what happened to the rear camera? It was tilted down. And when this young African-American male was paraded across the screen in handcuffs, he said, check the tape, check the tape. I never had a gun. Thank God for that rear cam recording, because it didn't have any footage but it had audio. All you heard was 2 shots. Yusef Ahmadi was a liar. You know what happened? He was fired, and guess what? He was fired after almost a year because our DA wouldn't prosecute him. Then he went to the police union and got his job back. Tony, you passed the bill last session that made it illegal to throw water on police officers. When stuff happens to police officers, we respond. When stuff happens to African-American males, we come up here and kumbaya, but we don't respond with action.
Representative Jay, 1 minute left. We were still under the 5-minute rule.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Because I didn't want to do this, and I agreed not to do it. But since there's an ask to talk about the entire issue, let's talk about the entire issue. Ladies and gentlemen, they might be words to you, and if you're offended by the words, some of us are offended by the actions. And Blake made a good point. Blake has children of color. And when you stood back there and you said, I'm concerned about them, that hit me. And I'm concerned about them as well. And I know some of you guys are uncomfortable right now. This is supposed to be an uncomfortable conversation. But thank God that you have to deal with an uncomfortable conversation and not an uncomfortable life when lights are shining behind you. And if you think that this little stupid pen right here prevents me from feeling fear, it doesn't. Because as a member from this body, I get my haircut on Nicholson Drive. Many of you have passed by it. On a day, sunny day, 5 of us are standing outside. Police officers pull up. Nothing happened. Give me your identification. So I said, okay. I handed him my legislative card and a card for my law office. Oh, we're sorry. And many of you are going to probably give them the benefit of the doubt. Oh, something must have happened. No, it didn't. Because I called the precinct captain. They didn't have a call. 5 black men standing outside and 3 officers pulled up. And then one of them had the audacity to tell me, I thought you were one of them. I am one of them. Just because I had this pen doesn't make me any different. And I want you guys to know that despite the title, as soon as I walk out of here, to many people, I'm just one of them. I report.
All right. All right. Representative Bacala to the floor on the bill.
I appreciate.
Representative Marcel, why do you rise?
How does Bacala get to come after he has closed on it? And it was a 5-minute rule, and we passed the 5 minutes.
It was.
So
that's
I
my
think
bad.
that
That was his close, Representative Bacala.
Thank you very much.
He was on close.
That ends that.
It ended right there.
All
right.
privilege.
All right. Members, Representative James moves the resolution to be adopted. All those in favor vote yea. All those opposed vote nay. The clerk will open the machine. Members, vote your machines. Vote your machines, members. You through voting? Through voting, members? All right, close them up. 99 co-authors, 99 yeas, 0 nays, and the resolution is adopted. Open it up for co-authors. Co-authors, members, vote the machine for co-authors. Vote for co-authors, members. You through voting? All right, close them up. 52 co-authors. All right, resolution is adopted.